is he doesn't want DEI being pushed on behalf of the United States in countries around the world because it's not our job to do that.
However, in Southeast Asia, where women and minorities are sometimes marginalized, DEI goes beyond quotas. So, the aid cut could affect programs involved in education, job creation, and healthcare for women, such as the former Diversity and Inclusion Scholarship Program, which sent marginalized students from Myanmar to study in universities across Asia.
When it comes to saying that we need to be focused on gender equality from a development perspective, especially where a lot of governments in the region do need to do more in terms of women and children when it comes to education, when it comes to finance, to prevent them from being trafficked. All of those things that USAID did, those were very good and important things to do, but that got caught up into this anti-wokeness and this political discussion in the US. And that's why USAID, in a way, was so very easy to go after and to eliminate in large parts.
Southeast Asia received $860 million worth of U.S. foreign aid in 2024. Beijing previously accused Washington of using foreign aid to interfere with countries' affairs and undermining stability in the region.
Quite clearly, I'm sure that the autocrats in Beijing and Moscow and other parts of the world are cheering. They can't believe that Donald Trump has basically unilaterally disarmed the United States in the course of 2 months. USAID, which was in some ways part of the best of the U.S. government going overseas, walking away from that shows a degree of cynicism that is really, really hard to understand as an American.
The gap left by USAID in Southeast Asia has given China an opportunity to fill. This March, Beijing announced a partnership with UNICEF to promote education, nutrition, and hygiene for children in Cambodia. Washington had cancelled 2 projects related to these causes in February. China was also quick to send over 600 rescuers and more than $150 million in humanitarian assistance to earthquake-stricken Myanmar in March. The U.S. pledged $9 million.
It would benefit China if the U.S. loses the ability to influence governments, to influence populations. It's not that China gains so much, it's that the U.S. loses. And then the U.S. will not be dealing with governments that are more inclined to that global rules-based system that exists today.
But there is another argument. For the most part, ASEAN as a region has prospered in the last decade. Some observers say it should wean itself off American aid.
You know, there is a discussion between all of the Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN countries, that ASEAN wealthier countries have the ability to go in and help not the same wealthier countries on immunization programs or other things along those lines that USAID would have done.
Between 2015 to 2022, the Lowy Institute found that intra-regional aid stood at $633 million. This made up just 0.25% of assistance which flowed into the region. President Trump has often accused countries of cheating the U.S. in trade and military aid.
How much do countries take advantage of the United States? How much has there been too much free riding? The answer is there has been too much. President Trump was right about this. He was right about this in his first term. Why is it the United States is putting in so much more funding into an organization like NATO? Why aren't European countries spending more on their defense? Now, when it comes to development, that is different. The amount of money the United States spent on development in USAID was an extraordinarily small part of the U.S. budget. And the countries and the governments here, many of which don't have the ability to spend like those countries that make up NATO.
As for the shuttered Eco Hub, they are turning to the Philippine government for funding.
Sa totoo lang, kahit naman yung barangay lang ang magsuporta dito, kaya naman namin with the help of city government. Pero syempre, iba pa rin yung merong kang added value eh. Pag sinabi mo yung program mo, it's funded by USAID, merong dagdag na value siya.
The Center for Global Development has calculated the estimated cuts to USAID programs based on the list shared with Congress. An average of 8 in 10 USAID programs in Southeast Asia were cancelled. What will it ultimately mean for U.S. engagement in the region?
We are democratic partners with many countries in Southeast Asia. We are defense partners with a number of countries in Southeast Asia. We are trading partners, some of the biggest trading partners in their country. When you talked about our image with regards to USAID in the countries, it could be damaged. But on a general scale, we have tremendous relationships with all of Southeast Asia, unrelated to USAID, that will continue for many, many years to come.
America will remain one of the two most important governments, with or without USAID. Look, it's the United States and it's China. When you eliminate USAID, when you eliminate development from that balance, it tilts it slightly more so towards China.
Where soft power stands in Trump's view of his quiver of arrows is interesting, right? Right now, there's very little evidence that it's very high on his priority list. He's using very much hard power instruments to get what he wants. I think Trump's belief is that the United States is the greatest country on earth, and by definition is relevant.
Right now, the 8 freeze is being challenged as unconstitutional. As the legal battle plays out in the corridors of American courts, across Southeast Asia, developmental groups must consider what lies in their futures.
For sure, may magandang reason si President Trump for the freeze nito. Pero I hope makita niya yung mga inspiring story na nakikreate ng mga tulong nila. So, kung ititigil niya yung tulong nito, parang tinitigil rin ng tulong ng mga Amerikano.
알루미늄에도 25% 관세 지금 부과하겠다라고 해서 사실 저희 업계에서는 지금 사실 초비상입니다.
In his first 100 days, President Trump has levied sweeping tariffs on most trading partners.
世界嘅貿易嘅規矩，我相信會重建嘅。
It is clearly a very transactional administration.
In Asia, what impact will the trade war have beyond imports and exports?
The silicon shield will be lower.
Insight, Thursday on CNA.
ASEAN, made up of 10 countries and 700 million people. China has been making significant inroads here.
The East Coast Rail Link connects the east coast of Peninsular Malaysia to one of our major ports, Port Klang.
This would be a shining example of the economic cooperation that has existed between Malaysia and China.
Now in Indonesia, China is our largest trading partner.
自2004年起，中国是越南第一大贸易伙伴。自2016年起，越南是中国在东盟第一大贸易伙伴。
The mistrust of China is still there, so it will not disappear overnight just because of problems Mr. Trump is creating for Vietnam.
China and the Global South, Season 2. premiering on the 9th and 10th of June on Monday and Tuesday.
This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Ateli Edwards. Tonight's top stories. ASEAN leaders sign a declaration in Malaysia on the region's future amid rising global uncertainty. The bloc strategy to build diverse economic ties is in focus as Chinese Premier Li Qiang arrives for key talks. French President Macron kicks off his Southeast Asian tour in Vietnam with dozens of deals signed, including the sale of 20 Airbus planes, as well as defense and space pacts. North Korea intensifies the investigation into the capsizing of a brand new warship, detaining officials involved in the mishap. And shares in Nippon Steel surged in Tokyo after U.S. President Donald Trump. Also ahead on East Asia Tonight, a week to go before South Korea elects its new leader, and the three-way race is getting tighter. And by some measures, China is the most influential country in Southeast Asia. Its Belt and Road Initiative has infused billions of dollars into boosting regional infrastructure and more. But why are perceptions of the superpower divided? Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim says that ASEAN members have agreed to boost regional trade and investment. The remarks come as the bloc faces challenges in light of Washington's tariffs, leading to trade uncertainties for the region's economies.